Hello, and thank you so much for joining me again today for another thought from the Bible. I'm coming to you from a slightly wet Liberia. We've just entered the rainy season now, so there'll probably be some more rainy videos to follow in the next coming weeks and months. But anyway, last week, the video that I recorded talked about this idea of surrendering all. When we sing songs like, I surrender all, I surrender all, what does that really mean? Are we really able to surrender absolutely everything in our lives, absolutely everything in our hearts to God? It is not an easy idea at all. There are often treasures, things of worth that we consider just too valuable to ever conceivably give up, things that we want to cling to in our lives. And I've kind of been thinking about that idea this week, what it really practically means to surrender in different areas of our lives. According to Google, that word surrender, it means to give ourselves up, to completely submit, completely yield our lives to an authority, to God. But how can we do that? Well, one area that's particularly hard for me, I think, is the area of work. Other than this kind of Bible teaching ministry, my other hat is that I'm an author, and that can be a real challenge. I can tell you, it's hard to know whether to keep going, whether to keep writing when it feels like there's no progress, when it feels like there's nobody out there who wants to represent or even to read the books that I write. But once upon a time I was challenged, and it's always stuck with me. Somebody once said to me, would you keep writing books because God told you to, even if no one ever read them? Ouch. We like to see the results of our endeavors, right? We like to know that we're being successful, that the things that we're doing are worth something, that the works of our hands are recognized and appreciated. We like to know that we're seeing success. But on the flip side to that, the other extreme is to say, well, if it's not going anywhere, then I'm just going to give up, right? I'm just not even going to bother. You want me to surrender it, God? Fine, I'll do that. I'm just going to put it down and give it up and quit because this is going nowhere, and what's the point? Just me? Surrendering something doesn't mean that we don't care about it. Offering it to God doesn't mean giving up on it. It doesn't mean we stop working at it. Using our gifts in the way that God said to because we're not sure what the outcome will be. And as I was thinking about all of this, I read a little verse in Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 12 that really kind of spoke into my heart on this topic, because it says, Lord, you will grant us peace. All we have accomplished is really from you. There is absolutely enormous peace to be found in recognizing that all we have accomplished is really from God. In surrendering the outcomes of the things that we do into His hands. Suddenly it doesn't rest on us anymore. Yes, we work hard, working for God, not for man, as the Bible tells us to. But what comes of it in the end? That's up to God, not us. All of the gifts and the talents that we have, all of the opportunities we've been given, all of that comes from Him. And He's not simply given us those things and then abandoned us. As Philippians chapter 1 verse 6 tells us, that He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. He is in it with us. He is helping to remind us that there is incredible peace to be found when we recognize that the most important thing, more important than success, more important than what we accomplish, more important than material wealth, more important than what other people think or say about us, the most important thing is Him. It's living with Him. It's having the honor of walking with Him and working with Him, regardless of what the outcome may be. That's the joy of surrender right there. It's the freedom we find in the realization that all of our outcomes are firmly in His hands, and submitting to whatever those outcomes may be, knowing that His way is the best way, even if the outcome is not quite what we were hoping for. When things don't work out the way we wanted them to, we can remember that nothing is ever wasted in God's kingdom. That job that didn't work out, well, you learned lessons there that you will be able to apply to whatever work you do in the future. That ministry that just seemed to fizzle out and die, well, you have no idea what impact it had while it was running, what seeds you might have sown into the hearts of people who need to know about God. That daily struggle with sickness or pain or frustration or anger or sin, whatever it may be, that testing is developing perseverance in you, even now, even at this moment, growing you to be mature and complete and lacking nothing. The outcomes are all in God's hands. And even when the outcome is something that we hadn't hoped for because of a mistake on our part, because we've done something wrong, God can still turn that around. Just because it seems to have gone wrong in our eyes, that doesn't mean that it's defeated. That doesn't mean that God can't still work with it. The outcomes are in His hands. He can turn any bad into a good if we're willing to surrender it to Him. The outcomes are in God's hands. Our accomplishments are in God's hands. Our hope of future accomplishments, they're all in God's hands too. There is nothing like the peace and the joy that we feel when we really start to recognize that truth, especially in an area where we have perhaps struggled to surrender all to God. But keep this in mind, because whatever happens in that situation, whatever happens with that thing, with that person, with that job, with that ministry, with that work, those things are in God's hands, and you can trust Him with them. Put down the loads that you were never meant to carry and offer it all to God. He will bring the right thing out of it, even if it's not entirely what we were expecting. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for that thought from the Bible. I hope that encouraged you. I know this is not an easy topic to think about, surrendering all to God, but it's so important. And when we reach that place of recognizing that it's all in His hands, that's when life becomes so exciting and so joy-filled and so peace-filled, even in the hard times, because we know that it's in His hands. So I'll be back on Wednesday next week with another video. I will see you then.